to this. Now, Cosatu has joined calls to lift the ban on alcohol sales. The Trade Union Federation, however, says it will only support this if strict regulations are implemented to ensure that there is responsible drinking. I'm joined now by Cosatu's parliamentary coordinator. He talks to us from Parliament. Matthew Parks, good morning to you. Why are you joining these calls? Or perhaps the more crucial question to ask you is, what kind of regulations do you think should follow the lifting of the ban?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Look, we've always supported government's objectives of saving workers' lives in terms of dealing with the abuse of alcohol. And we understood the pressures that government faced because our hospitals, our emergency units were being filled with the victims of the abuse of alcohol, from car accidents to domestic violence to other forms of violent crime. But equally, we also have to bear in mind that hundreds of thousands of workers depend upon the sale of alcohol in legal companies. That's from the farms to the distilleries to the transportation systems, to the manufacturers, to the retailers, to the restaurants, etc. So we need to get the balance right. For us, the government lockdown, including the banning of sale of alcohol, was a temporary measure to give space to the hospitals to focus on corona victims. But right now we also have the equal challenge of saving up to 750,000 jobs in the total value chain of the alcohol industry. So we are supporting a gradual resale of the alcohol, but under tight conditions. That needs to be limiting how much you can sell to a particular individual, banning certain persons like young people, like pregnant women from buying alcohol, not allowing any alcohol content in your blood whilst you drive, limiting the sales of how much alcohol you can buy at a sit-down venue like a restaurant or a bar. But equally, we need to also recognize the limitations of what government can do. Government cannot police us and manage how much we drink. We have to be responsible as consumers and not drink excessively. But equally, we think the industry also needs to play its role. It needs to support government restrictions and regulations. It needs to engage with active consumer education. It also needs to support measures to protect farm workers and other workers whose jobs are dependent. So we made additional proposals at NEDLAC and in Parliament. We're having ongoing discussions with government industry. We also think government needs to give specific support to the industry. For example, deferring the excise duties that are due to be paid because they can't pay taxes if they're not selling products. We also think that companies need to apply for the Unemployment Insurance Fund to provide relief for their workers as well. So it's a bit of a juggling act, but we're quite confident we can find the right balance. We have working quite closely with government and industry on a social compact which can look at saving workers' lives, but equally saving their jobs. But at the end of the day, Holly, it depends upon ordinary South Africans to not drink excessively. They have to manage how much they drink. Government cannot babysit us 24/7. So at the end of the day, we have to accept responsibility as adults and not abuse alcohol.
This, no doubt, Matthew, is good news, particularly to industry, that such a call also has the support of Cosatu. You sit at the top table. You're part of what is called the Governing Alliance. How soon, therefore, are we likely to see a lift to this ban? There are suggestions that we might hear an announcement soon enough.
Well, look, I mean, the current lockdown ends on the 15th of August. We expect the President would update the nation sometime during this week. We are meeting the President tomorrow at NEDLAC. So we don't expect anything to happen overnight. Government is still tackling the COVID-19 virus pandemic. But we're hopeful in the near future that we'll be able to find each other. We have drafted a social compact with government, with industry, which we want to table to the President for his endorsement. It will probably need a bit more of fine-tuning, but we're confident in the near future we could find each other. So then hopefully we could find that in the next month or so, ideally, we could lift this restriction. It is important to remember there's about 750,000 jobs which are dependent upon the sale of alcohol, but equally have to recognize that we have a huge problem with abuse of alcohol. So there's not going to be an overnight solution. But I think even probably beyond the pandemic, we've got a long history of excessive abuse of alcohol. And we really need to tackle that as a nation, culturally, etc., and see how can we consume alcohol in a responsible manner which does not displace the rest of our activities.
All right. Matthew Parks, just a bit of a curveball for you. I know you didn't prepare for this particular question. However, politics in this country never rests. Yesterday, the former finance minister for just 4 days was on the stand at the Zondo Commission, and he seemed to revive the whole debate around funding. Particularly, he raised the worry about the amounts of monies that were used at Nasrec. Where does Cosatu sit on this debate about people or the presidential candidates at the time to basically lay bare who funded whose campaign?
Look, I mean, for us, the issue of funding, how money is crept into politics inside the ANC and even outside the ANC, in government and society at large, it's been a very worrying thing. It's really a cancer at the heart of our democracy. It really is threatening the very survival of the ANC and our political system. We have to uproot it. The more transparency we can have, the better. But equally, we all know who has stolen money. We've had 4 commissions of inquiry into state capture and corruption. We've seen what happened in SARS and many other institutions of the state. We've seen what happened at ESCOM, at Transnet, at PRASA, across the board. We have seen very few people being taken to court. And for us, that's the real heart of the issue. We know in any society there will be issues of corruption and crime and theft. But what we really want to see is a national prosecuting authority, the police, the SIU, waking up from their very deep sleep and start arresting people and taking them to court. It's difficult for people to have confidence in the state and our political discourse if they see that politicians can loot left and right and there are no consequences for them.
Well, Matthew Parks, let me thank you very much for your time.